Hi, it's Nancy. Welcome to A Scroll in the Garden. I have been trying to figure out some things for like next year. Like this is, I definitely want to use this pretty blue lobelia in a shaded area like this. And I want to use the beautiful white and yellow calabachoa. But for right now, what I want to determine is what to use in pots like this one, because I will not put the calabachoa back in here because there it is. I need something that will really go ahead and stand through the summer heat and look good. Actually, a pretty little zinni would look good there. The zinnis do look good, but they also, it takes them a while to come on and fill out and then put their bloom on. So in the meantime, I want something to start out with. I have noticed that this vinca or periwinkle has looked good. That's one I will want to use in place of the ones that don't work well, like the calabachoas and bacopas. In those places, I found some places I think they will work, and I'm going to use those there. Definitely want to use those. They're just some of my absolute favorites. Also, always coleus. Coleus always fills in well. It's always pretty. It's pretty from the springtime when you put it in, and then it only just gets prettier, bigger and prettier. And I've got to start remembering to use more of the geraniums too. They come in several colors. They're mostly pinks, whites, and like this pretty little purple. And this is a ivy leaf geranium. I think they need the shade. So I couldn't use that in all the spots that I'm trying to find things for that will actually work well in pots in the sun and all through the season. This little salvia is a beauty with those little red on the lime green color. It's very pretty, but you can tell it's also turned brown in the heat, so it's not actually a really good one. I mean, I would definitely have one of them again or more, but I'm looking for something that's like just continuously pretty all summer long in the sun. Now this impatiens just can't be beat. For impatiens and coleus for the shade, you got it covered right there. And then of course I love the begonias, which is this little video clip is supposed to be about finding something, but look at that. Even this one little one that's never looked good, it's got a pretty color this morning, actually this afternoon, but they're looking good. The little glow flowers are very pretty, but again, they're not right to begin with because you have to plant them and then wait until they grow up to be pretty. The petunias are beautiful, but they're always iffy in Oklahoma. Sometimes they will flourish, and then other times they just go away in the heat. Angelonias, they are lovely. I would try to use more of those, I think. I'm still kind of skeptical about them too, actually, but they are beautiful. That's no question about that. And they're beautiful from the day you get them till the time frost comes. So that's a good thing. The marigolds again are a beautiful little filler plant for the summer sun, but again, they do better for me if I start them from seed. So then you're going to have to wait until they're in the middle of summer when they bloom. I want something that my pot will be full and pretty, and then even fuller and prettier when the seeds bloom or grow up and bloom. The purslane moss and the succulents are wonderful for the heat. They do look pretty from the time you plant them, and even prettier depending on if they're blooming. I'm just still having a hard time trying to come up with something for the sun. For the shade, absolutely, I just know I want Impatiens and Coleus. They just work for me. But for the sun, there's lots of things, but none of them that work from day one. And look, I'm guessing probably that the thing I found so far would be the Vinca or the periwinkle. Luckily, there's Coleus for sun and shade, so we could do Coleus and periwinkle together. I certainly don't want to rule out using the petunias because they are pretty, and these are right out in the sun and summer's heat. So some of them actually do seem to make it. I noticed also the Bidens or Bidens, that I'm not sure how you pronounce those, but those are a pretty little yellow flower here that I would definitely use again. Again, you just can't beat the Impatiens for the shade. They just so pretty, so many different colors. I really love the double ones, which I didn't have any this year of. I didn't find any. I planted some seed, but if they came up so far, they haven't made a showing or bloomed. But this sweet potato vine, this is in partial shade. So, but I think it normally does do well in the sun too. So that probably might be another option to use more of the sweet potato vine. This Coleus is a sun Coleus or a shade, because I have it more in this shade right here, and it looks really good. This is also the Vinca. So this may be one of my prime examples for next year, because it has the sun Coleus, the Vinca or periwinkle, and then right there that is a Angelonia. Because this one is mostly in the shade, it also has the pretty Prelling, the Copa in that. But I've tried that in Oklahoma full sun. It does not do well. I don't know how my little wren does all this without me seeing her, but I have not seen her over here, but I can see where she has been for sure. She's got it all rounded out, and it's looking good. I guess she'll still decide to build there. And this is probably another good example of a sun container plants, a sun container with plants that work well, but it's also mostly the periwinkle. And I don't think I put any Coleus in there, which is unusual for me. But I had it filled up with the marigold and double petunias and that pretty little apple blossom geranium. The Dusty Miller work, this is mostly sun. It does have a Calabachoa there with that mixed in with the Silver Falls de Chandra. And it's pretty, just this little green and that blue-green color. But I would not probably put the Calabachoa in this particular pot again. It's just not doing all that well. I would prefer to put it in the coconut liner pots that drain better. And I would put them in the shade, or at least mostly shade. They just don't do well in the Oklahoma heat for me. But you definitely just need to try things. Try them for your area. I always try what I like and then find a spot for it. But I am trying to find something that will be a little easier and that will stay longer in the garden. This one is the Alabama Sunset Coleus, and it does wonderfully. There's a red penta. I don't know if you can see from this angle, but there's a red penta in with that, and it's done pretty well this summer. Just that little pot of succulents, that goes to show you Oklahoma, that's what likes Oklahoma weather. Angelonia and a double petunia. This Angelonia hasn't just filled out real well until now, but it was pretty when I first put it in there, and it's beautiful now too. So I'm still thinking the Angelonia. I still would do some of the double petunias and regular petunias. They're just pretty enough to try, even if they're not pretty all the time. You just have one of those showing. It's beautiful. I love this silver falls, or silver salvia. I really like that. You can tell from the back of this little pot that I tried this is a white penta, which has done fairly well, and the pink geranium, which has done really well, and this petunia has done very well. So those are all choices too. I don't know. It's just the choices. I'll use some, but it's just still not my pick of something. I just want to find something that's just as sure for the sun as Impatiens and Coleus are for the shade. These pretty little celotias, I really like those, but again, until late summer, they're just kind of sitting there or growing, but no bloom, nothing. Not that I wouldn't put them in there so that by this time in the season you would have this. I definitely want to try that again and use the celotia again. It's just not the one I want. For what I'm looking for is for something that will start out from the first time you put it in the pot and just keep looking beautiful right up until the season is over. Not that I'm opposed to changing your pots out as the season goes, because I definitely think it's pretty if you put seeds in there too, and then when one plant, like sometimes this verbena will kind of wane in the summertime, and then summer heat, and then you can get like a little profusion zinnia growing right here. This one was a petunia, I believe, or a calabachoa, but it's just didn't do anything. I need to plant a profusion zinnia there or something to take over that spot. That's kind of what I was thinking about this one too. I was looking at it just prior to that other one, and the same thing has happened to it. You can see there's a little hole right there that needs filling in. Oh, I do see that my little like Tranthus plant is blooming. There's a beautiful sun coleus right back here in this one too. For the most part, I've been very pleased with the verbena. This pretty blue, it did well for me last year and again this year. Even in the heat, Fusion Zinni, it's, of course, the bright color is wonderful. You can tell it's drooping down a bit. It's saying, where's my daily drink? But it is beautiful. I love them. They just takes them a while, because they do best planted from seed, and then they can handle the elements so much better because they're used to it. So, but if you plant them from seed, of course, you're going to have to wait to get that bloom. I'll want to keep doing some of the vines. This pretty little black-eyed Susan vine. This one is yellow, and I have a white one too. This one is looking really good, and it gets some shade, but it also gets mostly sun. This one over here, I've got a morning glory vine on it, and I need to just pull that off, but I probably will leave it there most of the season simply because I didn't put something else on it. But they get so out of hand. As you can see, it's got vine coming way out off of it, and just unruly. They're beautiful, don't get me wrong on that. The morning glories are beautiful, but they're also terribly invasive, and they can be quite a mess. Probably the best thing to do with the morning glories is to pull them off that vine before they go to seed. But I don't know if I will do that, of course, because I always enjoy seeing the bloom, but it's really not worth it to me to have them coming up all over next year and having to thin them out or take them out. The chrysanthemums can actually be very pretty in a pot too. That's what this is right here. And especially when it blooms in the fall. But I would definitely do that again too, but it's another thing that you have to wait till the fall to get your pretty bloom color. So I prefer, well, I would want some of that, but I'm still looking for something that, maybe if I would have put vinca in this pot too and had some pretty bright color there. This little dianthus certainly helps, as does that pretty verbena, but just not quite enough color. And I thought this little pot was going to do well, and the Angelonia definitely is doing well, and the verbena is not doing bad, the pretty red verbena. I do love the pretty red stalk and the chard growing up in there with it, but even still it looks just a little scraggly. I have a little plant right here. I think that might be a Chinese forget-me-not, the pretty blue. It also has a blue, if you can see right down there, it has blue days in there, so I just thought this would really fill out and just billow out and be beautiful, but it really still looks scraggly. But that's what Oklahoma heat does to the plant, so I'm really trying to find something that will fill it out and make it pretty without having to continue to rework it all through the season. But I will go ahead and rework this one a bit and put something that will be small and trail there if I can find something to fit that purpose. You can see I tried to rework this one, but it's going to need reworking again. We had some cooler weather, which was so nice, but it wasn't cool enough, and there was just part of the day when the sun's still beating down, and it just needs something. I'm not sure what this little pot needs. Probably, this pot probably just needs some succulents in it. It's just too small to try to think it could do some of this other stuff, even though when the weather is cool it can, but we just don't have that much cool weather. Another little pot showing you that vinca or periwinkle and verbena are pretty much what I can depend on, and even the verbena can look scraggly in the summer heat. I really think that the vinca looks pretty good all through the season, though. It looks like it is. When I come out every day, there's often unexpected surprises in the garden. So when I've waited several days to do a post, there's usually several surprises or things going on that weren't going on before. This little delphinium bud right here, it's fixing to bloom soon. And one of the greatest surprises is just simply when I thought I couldn't go anymore in the heat, we got 2.5 inches of rain, or real close to that, and it got cooler for a little bit. Not, no, of course not really cool, but still cool for August, cool for the end of July. So it's been really some wonderful days. Oh, and look at this. I told you that all my pretty purple splash peppers and this may not be a purple splash, it may be a black pearls pepper, but I'm hoping it's a purple splash. Maybe hope against hope, though. I thought I saw some purple in there. Now all I'm seeing is black and green, so it's probably more likely it is a black pearl, which they are pretty too, but I really wanted some of the purple splash peppers this year. The garden had quite a reaction to all that water that it was not used to getting, and the rain and nutrition that's in it, and I ended up taking off, I think, 5 big trash bags full of debris, garden debris, just from clearing out my paths and things that were overgrown. Seems like there's a fine line between lush and overgrown, but it certainly happened, so I've been busy doing that is one of the things that I've been doing. So I just wanted to get back with you for a short post, or however long this ends up being. I've got little pieces and clips here and there, but I didn't want to leave it too long and leave the garden too long that it didn't have a good showing of what's really going on in the garden. But there's so much going on. Lots of things have died out, and I've replaced them with clippings, some from coleus and actually some from sedum, lots of different things. So hopefully they'll have a good start for a beautiful fall garden. And several things just got clipped back. This little container here, this was way up too tall that it was looking leggy, and I don't know, it just needed to be cut because it looks so much better now. It fits its little pot more and just groups together so much better. What a pretty pale yellow zinnia. The clematis is looking good. It's liking this cooler weather too. That's all it needed, was this cooler weather. Look at this golden carya. After the weather cooled off a bit, it just really began to bloom. And I got some new cardinals for my garden. Look at this little, well, first of all, this little yellow corydalis, and then right here beside it is a autumn fern, which it's very small, but to me it's actually large because this is the first time I've got a fern really going this much. I have one other, maybe a couple other ones that haven't really got going very much yet. And I noticed some more pretty zinnias right around here, several in a cluster. I think I've got 4 different colors growing right here. You already know these 2 little pots, this one and this one, are some of my favorites for this year. They've just done so well. Some of my favorite zinnias. I love the ones with the 2-tone color halos. And this lovely bougainvillea, which I don't normally do well with, and I waited till the end of the sales to even buy one because I didn't figure I could keep it, but it was trying to bloom, but in that heat it just couldn't. But when it got just a little cooler, it just took off and bloomed. So pretty. It's August the 10th, 2018, and the skies are threatening rain, and I certainly hope they carry through with that threat because I'm hoping we get water for the garden. I just recently did get some, but the last couple of days I waited 2 days before I watered, and I ended up going out and realizing that some of the things in pots and things that just really needed some water before then, I went ahead and got my little watering can out. I didn't have time actually to carry the water hose all through everything and get it watered, but I did get it watered good today. So even if we don't get rain, and I have learned in Oklahoma, in our area, to do not count on the rain, because it will inevitably let you down at some time. So just go ahead and water. Then if you get more rain, that's great, and you don't have to water the next day. And I was going to say that this is my little delphinium that I told you would soon be blooming, and it's blooming so pretty. And I'm still waiting to see if this little pepper is a black pearl or a purple splash, and I'm thinking again that it may be a purple splash, because I see the pretty white and a little bits of purple in there. So either way, it will be pretty. The black pearl peppers are pretty too, but I have said before that the purple splash are definitely my favorite for color and because they trail. There's been some things I've been wanting to show you, and now that I'm out in the garden, I can't really remember for sure what all they are. But I want to say too that there'll be a period that I won't have done any posts, and that's because I'm having some computer issues that I'm having to deal with. So I really need to get that all done and get that issue decided on and taken care of, so I can feel more comfortable or have my mind more on what I'm doing in the garden, at least on the posts. I've been able to keep on watering because it's actually a little bit of relief to get away from inside and get outside, where there's just a whole different atmosphere. And I wanted to show you this. This is called Keys of Heaven, this little pink plant, and it's looking good. And right beside it there are the red strawberry fields, and some of the dinner plate dahlias are blooming. Our little resident is still with us. I don't know if you can see our little wren resident in there. Maybe you can. She's pretty shy, but she has gotten now to where she will let me stand. I'm actually about 5 feet away from her. And the rains have pretty much turned this little area into a jungle. So many of my little garden decor are totally covered. There's a little girl down under this bird, if you'll remember from some of our earlier posts, which you cannot even see at this point. Actually, there's several things in there, so I'm not sure if I want to trim stuff back or if I want to leave it. I like the full lush look too, but I also like to be able to see the little garden art, so I may at some point trim it back. And some of this the foliage of the plants are actually getting scorched and spots. It's so strange to have August weather that's just scorching hot and scorching things, and then also to have cool days where it rains and things are really taking off a second new growth. But it's good. It's very good to have the cooler weather. It's welcome anytime. Also, I've been mentioning that I have some container size zinnias, and they are very pretty. They have a full size bloom, but they don't get very tall, so I put those in my containers. And there's one over there I need to clip off, but I'll probably save that one and probably any other ones also actually for seed. They're very pretty. And here's one of the Mexican flame vine blooms. My beautiful Calabrachoa died out of this pot, but this pretty little pink and white verbena is doing great, which is kind of the way it is in the garden. One thing will do great and the other things will be past their season, but this is looking really good with the celosia blooms and the bright pink celosia blooms, and then the burgundy celosia behind it. So I've really clipped this one back several times, at least 3, to keep it from just covering up the little squirrel in there. And I clipped the front one back also, but only that one time, so it's got more blooms than the other one, which personally that's the way I want it, because I don't want all that much of the burgundy to go to seed. It does go to seed really much. The other one, that pretty red or bright fuchsia pink, it doesn't seem to seed out quite as much, and it doesn't become a problem in the spring with it coming up everywhere like the burgundy does. But I still love the burgundy too. The water just a little bit ago, and this Calabrachoa, it was almost gone. I had, like I said, I waited 2 days after our last rain, and actually it needed some yesterday because it's kind of dried out in spots, as you can see. I'm hoping it'll come back and be beautiful, which it may or it may not. And here's some more of the pretty little shorter, I think these are called Zahara zinnies, but they're a short, I just call them a short container zinni because they don't get up so tall that they don't look good in a pot, but they stay pretty much right in with your other things. As you can see there, this one's a little bit taller, this yellow, and it still looks pretty. It doesn't like just totally stand out by itself so much that it looks awkward, but it still blends in. And these are some really pretty zinnies for containers with a full bloom, bright colors, and shorter size. The pretty globe flowers are looking good, bright and filling out and blooming in little clusters. This is, of course, another of the Zahara container zinnies. And my pretty little bright blue lobelia that I had right here has gone away. I don't know if the heat got it or the heat and the rain at the same time got it, but it's gone. I left it there. I clipped it all back and left the root, but I'm quite sure it will not come back. And then right behind us where I had that pretty white and yellow Calabrachoa, and the two together were stunning, but they're gone. I'm sure they're gone for the whole season. So they're two pretty little coleuses there that are still going to look good for the remainder of the season, I believe. I'm very proud of my bougainvillea. Isn't that pretty? Not a plant that I easily do, but this one, this time it did bloom very pretty. One of my new hibiscus bloomed for me recently, but it's not blooming today, but I'll try to put the picture that I got from it on here with this. It's very pretty. It's not quite as bright as I thought it would be. It's a little dark and a little, which actually kind of makes it a little dull, but it's still very pretty. And this is my annual butterfly plant. And I have some of the perennial too. This has to be replanted each season, but it's very pretty, and I'm going to see how it does with seed. I'm not sure if it'll come back from seed next year or not, but I'll definitely give that a try. And then there's petunias, and this is what I was going for, this pretty blue forget-me-not. Oh my goodness, something smells so good right here. It's got to be the petunias, because the zinnias don't have a pretty scent, or even if they have a scent, I'm not sure that they do, but they are so pretty. This is the other container zinnia that I like, which is the profusion zinnias, and they just bloom, bloom, bloom. And these are zinnias in this tiny little pot with this chicken or rooster, whichever that is. But I'm not sure if they're profusion or if they are the larger blooms, but they'll be pretty there. And it's hard to beat this coleus. It's called redhead. It takes shade or sun. It's just a stand out and very pretty. And I did go ahead and move this little plant from my seed box, and it stayed wilted for 2 days, and I don't think it would have came out of it, except that we got a little rain, about 3/10 of an inch, and then we also got cooler weather with it, so it has actually come out. And I think it may be Alternanthera. I was thinking at first that it was probably one of my peppers, probably the black pearl, but now I'm pretty sure it's an Alternanthera, which usually they are more burgundy in color than this one is, but this is still pretty. A short while ago, I was wondering if this little Calabrachoa right here would come out of it when the heat was just exhausting, but and I let it dry. We had a rain, a small, very small rain, and I didn't realize it was as dry as it was by the time I watered. But it is coming out of it. Isn't that gorgeous? That little double red Calabrachoa, so pretty. So glad it didn't give up, because so many of them have for me this year in this heat. There's a little hummingbird over there. I don't know if I can get him for you. Maybe. And this redhead coleus and this beautiful pink bougainvillea. I still can't believe that I actually was able to get them to do this, because that's only twice that I've ever got the bougainvillea to do well enough to look like this. It's almost like Janie's in Janie's nursery. The butterflies are flitting about, and it's just a pretty day this morning. And this is one of my newest hibiscus from Lochie's. Also, I told you that my friend from school had painted a little girl for me for my garden, and this is her. I'm going to get to introduce you to her this morning. I finally got her there, and yet that's not really where I think I want to keep her. But I didn't want to just put her out in the middle of the garden in case we have a sudden hail. I don't want anything to happen to her. Isn't she pretty? Look at this purslane moss. It's trying to mist out here, and it's loving this weather, and it's certainly looking bright and beautiful. Look at this pretty coleus. Color's so bright pink. That one is a little start off of this one right here, which is very pretty, but it's not as, it got as much pink in it as this other one does. This orange is the Mexican flame vine flower. I've also been thinking that there are places in the garden that are just completely overgrown, out of hand. If we look right back here, this probably needs some clipping done on it. Still got some pretty dahlias in there, but they're just getting leggy and not so pretty. Also, this little pot, I set it up because it was completely hidden behind this fountain grass, and I need to kind of straighten it up a little bit and maybe clip some of this coleus down to size a bit. Here are some more places I want to change for next year. I really do like the celosia with its pretty little spikes of seed heads and just color, but there's another one I really like, this deep dark one here. But it's just becoming overgrown. These will all make seeds and try to all come up next year. So I'm going to have to see about probably trying to do something with this area. I'm not sure what. It may look like this next year, but I'm not totally opposed to this look, but I think I could do better. I do have some more tomatoes ripening on this vine. I have continually tried to salvage this little 3-tiered pot right here, and it's just leaning terribly. I think it may be time to let it go. Maybe I can purchase another one and do something else with these coconut liner pots. I've also had to redo them, but that is just a normal, natural thing I've learned for the garden. Some things are going to make it and some things are not going to make it. I have discovered that sometimes for me the periwinkle, like this pretty little white one here, doesn't get a good start and it seems to lag behind. But then in the fall, when everything else is gone, it perks up and does one of the better plants for the fall. So I may try to use those a little bit more than I have been using them. There's one with a little bright pink eye on it. This is an Alto Nemthera. It's not the Purple Night, and I'm not exactly sure. It's one in that group, though. Maybe it might even be called Scarlet, which it has done well. I would use it again also. This pretty little white Bacopa, it's looking really good. This one and the one in front, the pink one, are I think the only ones of these that made it. And also we have a rain tree right in this area, which makes us have these rain tree bugs. They eat the seeds of the rain tree pods. And if you have a rain tree, you'll have these. They're called red shoulder bugs, or just we call them rain tree bugs. We never were bothered by them or had them until we got our rain tree and we started noticing them and say, what kind of bugs are those? My little niece has a tree. I'm not sure if it's a rain tree, but it's one that brings these also if it's not a rain tree. And she asked me what they were, and I said, of course, you know, they're just, as far as I know, they're just a rain tree bug. And she said, well, I've been calling them butt bugs because this is how they travel a lot of times, with their tail ends hooked together. I don't know how that one little one crawls backwards so well, but evidently they make it just fine. And what I've read so far is pretty much not showing that there's a lot you can do about them. Soap and water knock them back, and I used a 7-dust in the spring, and I actually went ahead and used some down around this building where they love to congregate. But it just knocks them back. It really doesn't stop them at all. This is the pretty purple Plectranthus bloom, and I love the plant itself, even though it doesn't bloom until late in the summer or early fall, and has this pretty little purple bloom. The one I had last year was more of a solid purple, whereas this one has some white in it. But I just love just the foliage, even when it's not. The picture I showed you just before has this little plant right here, or pot right here has this plant in it. This is my main Plectranthus plant, and it just has a pretty deep dark green foliage. I was also saying earlier that you just have to change a lot of things throughout the season. That certain things just don't stay beautiful no matter how much you want them to. That this one is to be my water garden, and it just, everything has died out of it. So I ended up putting some of the, I think this is also called a Pacranthus. It's a fuzzy leaf, kind of like a lamb's ear, and it's a cousin to the coleus. But I ended up putting some clippings in this pot, and it looks pretty good right now. But before it was just empty and didn't look good at all. So you just have to keep moving things around and changing them out to keep it always something growing in it if you can. And of course some things are just gonna not make it no matter what you put in there, seems like. Maybe I just haven't found all the right things. But that's one thing I'm kind of trying to do, is trying to make a record of what did work well for me. The dahlias, actually, the foliage part worked really well in these little pots, but I'm not sure that I care for the way the blooms actually did. A lot of them did this little bit here. If you keep them wet enough for them to actually, the foliage to do well, the blooms are too wet. And these little obelisks looked totally bare until now. You can tell that this middle one here, or this one right here, still doesn't have much on it. It's still bare, but the one behind it with the black-eyed Susan vine on it is just totally covered with black-eyed Susan vine, and I've had to clip it off the top to keep it from reaching over and growing up my trees. And the coleus can get so beautiful that I hate to trim them back, but they're just too overgrown. So I think this is one place I need to do some trimming. I think there's several places that just really need a good haircut. And this is my one Calabrachoa that has just not quit this summer. All my others have faded in and out, and mostly out, but this one has not quit on me. It evidently loves where it is. It gets some shade, some sun, and it is in one of these coconut baskets like the one above it, and it likes to be drained, but it likes to also have daily waterings. One of my favorite things is finding colors that work really well together that I didn't realize did before, and that would be this pretty little purple, light purple annual salvia, and this pretty little coleus right here beside it. I just accidentally put those together, probably because I didn't plan it, but that's very pretty. I would definitely use those colors again. I'm still liking the chard in the garden. The one in front didn't do as well for me as this one has. The colors in it are not as bright. Maybe it needs a little more shade, because this one is shaded some in the afternoon, evening. Love that bright red. Some more red for you. This is one of my dahlias that are blooming. They're not doing just real well this year, but they still may. They have time to still do more blooms like this one. This little pot has a thundercloud sedum, which is a small little sedum, and soon I think it's going to be a billow of white. And then this little sedum right here, I'm not sure what this is. It may be one of the hens and chickens, but they're very small, and they just cluster and then pile up on top of each other, and to me it's very pretty. Look at this. There's my candy cane verbena I've been raving about. This is the way my friend Glenda had it looking, and I didn't know if mine would ever look that pretty, but right now in this cooler weather it's looking so good. Some of the roses are blooming pretty for me today. I couldn't resist getting just one more shot of this beautiful verbena. I knew it could do that, but I didn't know if I would get to show you that it was doing that. This is another one of the dinner plate dahlias, and a couple more of the dahlias. You can tell that I'm either a bloom bug or some some kind of insect has just took the pretty little petals right off of that. This one's still looking pretty good though. I don't know if I can get a good shot of this one back here. I think it's pretty much spent. I probably just need to take it off and let it try again, a new bloom. But those were also very pretty. I hope the garden can be a pleasure to you. It's a pleasure to me if I can make it pleasurable to you as well as to myself, because I enjoy to be out here. I enjoy to see the beauty. I enjoy to see nature around me and hear the sounds of nature. And I've kind of had a rough day today, and it feels like it takes some of the tension and stress off, and I hope it does that for you to see the pictures of the garden. I'm pretty sure this is my purple splash pepper, and I planted several of them. I don't even know how many, and as far as I know, this is the only one. I didn't realize it was here until just recently, but it's looking good. I love it. I love the colors. Just look at that color. It's got black, nearly black, a dark green, and a white, as well as the purple. And they normally trail. This one's kind of wanting to go straight up, but normally they trail over and just look and just have a very pretty plant, which this one may go ahead and trail a little bit later. I just wanted to try this. I think this is called a Spanish flag vine. Can you see those? I'm not sure if I've got it in focus enough where you can see it or not. But I wanted to try these, but I'm thinking that I probably need to look that up and find out if they're invasive, because if they are, I want to get rid of them before they go to seed. I think they're pretty. I wouldn't mind having some of them, but if they're like morning glories, I just don't have time to fight those. They're just way too invasive. When I start the garden out in the spring, once I finally get it all cleaned out, and just see how bare everything is, but then I start going to the nurseries and finding new plants and getting excited about that, and then I put them in the ground or in their pots. Normally I put most of my annuals in pots and the perennials in the ground. That just seems to work for me the best, and that's not a ironclad rule. That's just what I normally do. But it's so hard to tell, because you just don't know how it's going to turn out, if it's going to do well where you put it, if an insect is going to get it. And I'm probably going over some of the things I've already said, but that's just the way it is in the garden. If you want to keep a garden all season, you're going to have to deal with that kind of stuff pretty much on a constant basis, evidently, because you just don't know what kind of insects are going to come, what kind of weather you're going to have, if it's going to be cool, heat, wet, and what kind of insects those temperatures are going to bring and give you trouble with. But grasshoppers, roly-polies, what's going to end up killing it. If I've had some plants you've wondered how they did, or if they're still in the garden, just be sure and let me know, and I'll see if I can figure that up for you and either show it to you or let you know what happened to it that eradicated it from my garden. Look at this pretty little white Gaura. Isn't that pretty? I put it in this pot, and it's just kind of hung on till now, and now it's just really thriving. It probably will get bigger there than I want it to be, but this is the shorter version if I remember right, so it may not. And if this is as tall as it gets, I'm thinking that's gonna do well there for me. See, I need to do some more liquid edging. This is Bermuda grass here, and of course, you know how it reaches out, and I just definitely don't want it to get started all the way into the garden. It's beginning to reach over that way now. So I will need to get out here and spray this, and hopefully keep it back. It just has to be sprayed pretty often to be able to keep it out of the flowers. Another thing that you don't know when you start in the spring what it's going to end up looking like in the fall, which I think this is very pretty, but this little cosmos right here, if you can tell the plant that it's growing on, they get pretty good size, and so do these cosmos. They're just a pretty little filigree plant until they get a little bit out of hand and cover up everything else, and then they need to be trimmed back so it's just not a complete jungle. I'm going to see if I can show you our little baby wrens without disturbing them too much. They don't seem to mind if I look in on them, but of course their mother doesn't have the same feeling. I had to move the flashlight away because you can't see in there if you don't have one, and I'm sure their mother likes it. This is one of the areas that has a little bit of an overgrown look to it, even though it's very pretty, and I love that lush look, but I think that it might look better if I actually took some of this out of here and let you see the garden decor again, and maybe it'll just make it not look so leggy. The coleus look a little bit leggy and not as pretty as they normally would. The impatiens, I just love the way they billow out and fall down. It's just beautiful, but I'm not sure that I don't even want to take some of that off. This is one of the clematis. I'm pretty sure this is the fall clematis, and it will be very pretty if it is. It's just a billow of white. I'm not sure if I want that there either, though I've had to clip it back several times already because this area, if it gets any bigger, it's just going to come right out on my walkway. So it's just a constant how you want it to look and what you need to do to get it to look as closely as what you have in mind as possible. Look at the pretty globe flowers. There are some blooming in the back I meant to point out to you too, and I didn't do that. These beautiful zinnias that I love, and I think there's Zahara zinnias. They are a short zinnia that work wonderful in containers with a big full bloom, even bigger than most of the ones that come up on the tall stalks. Actually, there's a white one back there too that I'm just going to have to move things around. I mean, a yellow one back there so you can see a little bit of it. I can reach it there a little bit where you can. So there it is, and right in front of it is I think that's going to be another big zinnia. Like, anyway, the Zahara zinnias like these over here. That's just now starting. It may not be. It may be a smaller size zinnia. And here's some more of the double cosmos. And my husband said he loves them. Actually, I like them too. But as you can see, all those little nibbings where flowers have been are many seeds, and they'll go to seed and just be all over, and they're very hard to control if you let them go to seed. I hope to get out here and take off a whole bunch of those, and I hope I have a few come back, but I don't want so many that I can't control them. I'm putting my garden shoes up for the night, and I just had to look one more time at our little ones. Can you see? She's got her mouth open, if I can get it where you can see. I hope you can see that. I can't tell for sure how many's in there, maybe 4.